Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the Podcast Mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Hello, fellow entrepreneurs, and welcome back to another enlightening episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Phil Better, the Podcast Mogul, and today I am very, very excited to have our guest today. Not only do they have a very interesting last name that he helped me figure out how to say, but he is a full-time podcaster. He's a podcasting business consultant, and he's a host of the Apple Top 100 ranked podcast, Podcasting Business School. And being a host was just the beginning. He's also a guide using his three-phase Podcasting Business Accelerator process to empower coaches, consultants, and service providers. The goal? To leverage podcasting more than just for visibility, but to create six-figure income streams while subtracting at least one day from their work week. Now, without further ado, let's welcome the maestro of podcasting and business strategies to the show, Adam Schaeuble.
Very nice. Phil Better. Great, man. Great job on the pronunciation. I know it's always an intense moment. A lot of vowels in there. If you need to buy a vowel, I got them in my last name.
You're giving them away. You're giving them away.
Yeah.
Left, right, and
we
center,
got it.
you know.
We got it. But dude, I'm fired up to be here.
Thank you. I actually just removed the vowels and put a Y like you suggested, like shyly. And I'm like, nope, we're going to just remove these and buy a Y because I can. But Adam, I'm very excited because we are kind of in the same profession. We both do podcasting for a living. So that's exciting. We are actually put in contact through a former guest of the show. So that's even better. Power of podcasting tenfold. So I want to thank you for being here. But right off the bat, why did you become an entrepreneur?
So I became an entrepreneur because I've pretty much been unemployable my whole life. Like there was not really another choice. I don't like for someone else to boss me around. I've worked for someone else for 1 month of my entire life. I bagged groceries for 1 month at a grocery store when I was 15 years old. And that's the only time I've ever worked for someone else. Otherwise, it was like my own lawn business, landscaping business. I've got into personal training. I eventually owned my own fitness facility and then went into online entrepreneurship and podcasting from there. So I'm a wild entrepreneurial stallion that needs its mane to flow freely in the wind, or I just don't operate well.
You're one of the free stallions. I like that. That's a good one. Adam. So it's funny because I find a lot of some business podcasters come from the fitness world. They come from, they either own their own gym, they own their own online fitness thing, and they segue into podcasting. And I want to know, how did you find podcasting? Like, how did you decide to go from, hey, I'm going to help people get fit to I'm going to podcast?
Yeah, great question, Phil. So I had a pretty successful business going with my brick and mortar gym. I had my own kind of weight loss transformation story. I had lost over 100 pounds. I created a little boot camp program. I started helping local individuals in Bloomington, Indiana, where I was born and raised. And we started really kicking out great results. I ended up helping my hometown lose 35,000 pounds in 5 years. So crushing it. Started looking at opportunities to grow the brand a little bit. And I didn't want to franchise it, but I was a big fan of podcasts. So I'm like, I'm going to start a health podcast and see if I can transfer some of these programs into online memberships, start helping people all over the place, kind of open that online door where there's unlimited business opportunity. And it took me 3 years to really figure it out. I was consistently putting out episodes. I had a show called The Million Pound Mission. And I eventually figured out how to monetize online with memberships and online courses and coaching programs, boot camps, to where I had a lot of my fitness people that were fitness experts that were kind of on the show that were guests. They started noticing like Adam's monetizing. He's not just doing sponsorships and stuff like that. He's like selling programs, products, and services. So they asked me, they go, hey, could I pay you to help me develop my online membership, my online coaching platform? And then I quickly realized that it is what it is. The financial opportunity when you can teach people how to make money is much greater than teaching people how to get healthy. So it is what it is,
hey, money makes money, right?
Yeah. So that led me into the Podcasting Business School brand, where I started kind of building that out and doing that show. And I sold my entire health brand, my gym, my show, my email list, my social media profile, the whole thing got sold off to different people. And that's why I went full time in the business space with Podcasting Business School.
Jeez, that's insane. That is that's insane, Adam. Going full time. So how long have you been doing full time podcasting? Like how long has it been like this has been your bread and butter, or at least started to become your bread and butter?
So I launched the first health show in 2015. It took me till about 2017 to start making any sort of meaningful income, because I didn't know any podcasters. I just struggled through the whole thing. Can't believe I didn't quit, but super grateful I didn't. 2019 is when I went full time with I sold my gym and my whole brick and mortar business. And I know some of your listeners are listening going, oh, that was lucky. He sold his gym at the end of 2019 before the pandemic started. That was a struggle.
Yeah, I was
Pure
about
luck.
to say you just got out of there at the right time.
Yes. I didn't have to deal with any of that stuff. I was completely online through the entire 2020 fiasco. But then I ended up selling my health online brand in 2021. And then, so I've been a full-time podcaster since the very end of 2019.
End of 2019, which is kind of great because you have your brand is Podcasting Business School, and then at the hit, we all know what happened at the beginning of 2020. It was the kind of like the second, I like to call the second boom or the third boom of podcasting, because you got the serial boom, then you got Joe Rogan's boom with the $1 million. Like $1 million, that's when like everybody's like, wait, we can make money,
Yes.
and then 2020 hit, and that's when like we just exploded in podcasting, specifically business-oriented podcasts, because speakers and that couldn't get on, and that's your domain. You focus on helping those coaches in that. One of your recent emails was actually talking about talking on stages and how you made a large income from the stage, and I'm a little jealous of that without even having to pitch. But when did you transition into talking on stages?
I've been speaking on stage kind of randomly since 2017. And it's one of those things people ask me all the time, like, how did you get booked on stage? And I'm like, I'm just kind of a good networker. I'm good at making friends. And when I get an opportunity, I prepare for it and I max that thing out. Like I'm not that guy that's like, did my slides right before I hopped up on stage this morning, and I'm going to read verbatim off of each and every slide. I'm not that guy. I'm like, if I get an opportunity to get in front of 50 people, 100 people, 4,000 people, like I don't care the size of the crowd, I'm going to max it out. I'm thinking about every single slide, what is on there. Am I connecting that to my brand and my show in some way? Am I inviting people to dive into my world a little bit deeper? Am I building relationships, and am I freaking standing out? Like, am I doing something that's going to make them remember me versus the dozen or 100 other people that they're going to see speak on stage during this event? So I'm hyper focused on that. And I just kind of started getting some opportunities in 2017, 2018. And, when you make it count, there are people out in the audience that end up reaching out going, hey, I've also got an event. I like what you did up there today. Or people will refer you to other business. Like, hey, Adam pulls in a big crowd. You want to have him at your event. People will attend because he's there. So I think that's the main way that I've been able to speak on stages. And with my show and with my brand, I primarily do solo episodes and coaching style episodes. So I'm always showing off my expertise. So if people do find me via my brand, they're hearing me coach and they're hearing me speak solo. So they can kind of envision me in that role a little bit more.
I like that. So with your episodes, because I've listened to a bit of them and they're really good, I have to say.
Thank you.
I'm quite jealous. because it does seem like you put more time and effort into it than I do. I like to go in. It's true. Like what I like to do with this podcast is for me to learn from entrepreneurs. So I like to know as little as possible.
Yep.
And unfortunately, sometimes I get to find podcasters who are also entrepreneurs, and since why not learn from other entrepreneurs that are in the same domain, right? That's the only way you can grow. So I know a little bit about you and your story and that, and I love it. But you do much more preparation than me. And I want to be honest, like it seems like you do like hours worth of preparation for your episodes. How do you balance the time? Because you look to, like I read in the intro, minus a day of work. So how do you get so much prepared for your podcast while also keeping that like life balance, which you seem to have mastered?
Yeah. Well, let me throw a curveball at your audience. I have a 3-day work week. So I work Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and that's it. I do not work the other 4 days of the week. So, and I phased into that. I didn't just like jump from working, 8 days a week to 3 days a week. That didn't happen. But as that gym owner guy, that brick and mortar guy, I was the guy that was doing 80 hours a week and working myself into the hospital with anxiety attacks and the whole thing. Like I've been there also. Mm-hmm. So I had that motivation to start figuring things out. So now I'm Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday work week. I have to be ultra efficient with every aspect of my business. There cannot be fluff. There cannot be a lot of filler, a lot of mess around time. So I have a strategy for each day. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So Tuesday is when I record my own content for my own show. I do 2 episodes a week. I do a solo episode every Tuesday and what I call a podcast audit, where I invite a listener onto the show every Friday and I coach them for free. Cool. So the nice thing about those 2 types of episodes are, first thing is it's expert positioning, which is always great if you're a service provider. The other thing is my solo episodes are 10 to 20 minutes long usually. And I appreciate you, dishing out that compliment of me being prepared and all that, but more the factor that's more important in me kicking out my content is I've just done so much of it. I've got 450-ish episodes of this show. I mean, I've got 1,000 episodes under my belt since I started in 2015. So I've got the process down. It used to take me a lot longer and a lot more bullet points and a lot more planning out solo episodes. But now I'm like, what are the top 3 takeaways? Bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. How do I connect the dots? All right, let's hit the record button and let's fire it up. So I'm doing 10 minutes of prep for a solo episode. So
sure. You're doing the same amount of prep I'm doing. Okay, thank God.
Yeah, and I do 0 prep for the coaching style episodes because they fill out a little sheet that says, here's what I'm struggling with. Cool. That's what we're going to focus on. Let's cut loose for 30 minutes. Away we go. And I like, kind of like you, I like to think on my feet in those types of episodes where people are going to get me in that moment, my real raw coaching, Coach Adam situation, thinking on my feet. Let's see what we come up with here. So that, I'm doing very little prep. And I've got a rule for those of you that edit and produce your own show. I've got a 1-to-1 ratio. So if it takes me 20 minutes to record an episode, I do not allow myself more than 20 minutes to edit and produce and create social media assets and all that stuff for that episode. So I mean, this as well as I do, Phil. Like so many people are like, I created a 15-minute solo episode and then I spent 6 hours editing it. I'm like, this is dumb and you're going to burn out. You will pod fade. So that helps a lot, having that little rule in place.
Yeah, I've kind of, when I first started, it was very heavy. Like this is the Digital Entrepreneur is my like second really official podcast, but third, if you think about the ones I never released, the thousands I never released. But I recorded, 1 episode or something. But like the Phil Better show, which was my movie review show that slowly going to be coming back, I used to edit out every little bit, and so like an hour-long episode, you're like 4 or 5 hours of editing. You're like, I'm done with this, and then you just realize like, screw it, I'm done with the editing because that's it. And I like the more organic feel. Like if there's long pauses, I remove those because those are annoying for me as a listener. But I love the ums and ahs because it's authentic. You get to know the person. Like you said, the coaching sessions, live, raw, real, and there's the authenticity versus what like polished journalism, if you will, which I would want my journalistic things to be polished because, you know, we're supposed to be presenting something.
I mean, if somebody's got a storytelling podcast or like a Netflix style series podcast or a meditation podcast, that's a different scenario. Like that needs to be edited. There needs to be like
super polished.
Yeah. All that.
It has to be a 90% polish rate versus the interview based podcast, and somewhat solo can be like a 50%.
It's education. As long as you bring actionable tips and energy and it's not boring, you can say as much as you want. I don't care. Like, go ahead, go for it. And you just blast away and you let your personality shine. I was just talking to somebody about this that was kind of on the struggle bus with, you know, spending a lot of time editing. I'm like, just be you and let that through. And you're going to get better and better and better as you speak more. You'll use less filler words and all that stuff, but you just got to get your reps in and speak like your listeners speak. Become the people's champion. Be that person that's super relatable to them. Bring that type of energy. And if you deliver and educate, they're going to love you.
I can't say enough. Question, like my good friend Wilfredo, the El Jefe, as I like to call him, Stuck in My Mind podcast, amazing podcast. He says he was tired of editing, so he just went live. Now, my question to you is, do you do the same thing? Like, I obviously, I'm guessing your Friday coaching is live when you record it, or is that private? How do you do that?
Yeah. So my podcast audits, those are recorded and live streamed on Tuesdays. And I've got those way out in advance. So like, I've got people that sign up 8, 12, 16 weeks in advance to be on the show for those. So but I do 2 a week. So I'm always kind of ahead. So what usually happens, I live stream those on a Tuesday. They go on to social media. They go on to my YouTube. You know, there's interaction. So I've got that live presence. So they are recorded live. And then I take the audio and they usually come out in the show about 8 weeks later is kind of the rotation. And a lot of people kind of freak out about that. Like, but what if somebody watches it on YouTube? That won't count as a download. I'm like, I don't care. Like that, like, I don't care. And when you don't accept sponsors and deal with sponsors and things like that, you kind of get into this I don't care about downloads so much mentality. Like, I don't have to show downloads to some sponsor to get them to pay me. I just grow my brand organically. And, you know, I like to see the numbers go up and, you know, I'm proud of where we're at and all that stuff. But I'm not stressing out about somebody watching it on YouTube or LinkedIn instead of listening it to, like, I want them to discover me and then binge. I don't care where you binge. Let's just, you know, let the binge fest begin. Yeah. I want, that new commercial I've been seeing, resting binge face. Let's go. Let's go.
I want to be your go-to podcast when you're driving to work, when you're coming home from work, when you're doing your working out, whatever you're doing. I want you to be listening to this podcast. And like, I love how you said you don't care about the downloads, because it's very important. I know a lot of people who start podcasting, they're like, oh my God, the only way we can make money from podcasting is sponsorship. And what I loved about the 2020 boom was a lot of business owners came in. So they came in and saw how disgruntled, if you will, making money is in the podcasting. They're like, wait, this is like marketing. Like, I've always seen it as the evolution of radio. Like, we are the evolution of radio, just like streaming is the evolution of TV. Yeah. You know, so like, and like you said, if they watch it on YouTube, YouTube pays you at a certain point. So I don't care. YouTube's going to pay me to have someone stream it there, watch it there, or they become a part of my email list, or they decide to join the live streams or anything like that. They're bringing money into your pocket anyways.
Yeah. We have to kind of chill out as content creators sometimes and just be like, it's just a lot of fishing lines in the water. And if we get a bite, good, celebrate it. Like, and then bring them in. And then with your content, it is important. Like you said, like, are we building our email list alongside this? Are we inviting them to join? What are those stepping stones when they first discover us, wherever it is? Are we placing those connection-based stepping stones? Like, if people listen to my show, they hear me put out what I call a Pod Pal Zoom party episode every single month. I invite my listeners, about 10 or 20 listeners, to come on the show. We do a community style episode. I teach a little bit. They share. We do podcasts or speed dating where they do interview swaps and stuff like that. And it's like, it's a cool thing. That's a stepping stone that brings people in. I want to interact with as many of my listeners as I absolutely can. So when I show up at PodFest a couple of weeks ago, I'm on stage. They booked me for a 45-person room. We had 100 show up. It was hot as crap in there because we had double capacity. People were literally sweating and peeling clothes off as I'm like, I know it's hot, guys. Hang in there. They're like, it's worth it, bro. We're here for you, man. And like, you know, people are passed out in the corner now. But it's
you're throwing water hoses.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
it's a full on.
Let's get the ice packs over
party.
here.
Yeah, it's a Miami Beach party going on.
Yeah. So, but I love that, and like I will be in the trenches, boots on the ground, doing the dishes. Like I will put in the work to interact with as many of my audience members. And one of my favorite things when I do speak on stage is I'm like, hey, raise your hand if you've ever got a voice DM from me on Instagram, or we've interacted on email, or you've done a podcast audit, you've been to Pod Pals, and all these free things. And you see lots of hands go up. And I'm like, that's what I'm freaking talking about. That's how independent podcasters win. And we beat out all the big brands with all the big marketing dollars and all the big time followers. We can provide access. If we're willing to do the work for free and connect with our audience and go, yeah, you come, you know, people are surprised all the time. I do all my own onboarding calls for my membership. I do all my own discovery calls. I don't delegate any of that stuff because I love the connection. That's what I'm here for. Like, why would I delegate that? That's my favorite part. So when I pop on for a discovery call and they're like, wow, I thought I was going to talk to like a salesperson. I'm like, no. And I'm not even going to try to sell you on anything. Let's just talk about how to make more money as a podcaster. And they're like,
you're like, I got all this knowledge here. Take it. I don't want you in my business.
Yeah. So it's a lot of work, but I've been consistently putting in reps like that for the last, 4 or 5 years. And it's paid off in a huge way to where now I'm really reaping the benefit of that effort. And that's why I continue to do it.
So as you were talking, I don't see you as a content creator. I see you as a community creator, because that's what you're building with your content. Like the content is just an added bonus. Your goal is to build your community, because there's like I think it's Pat Flynn that constantly quotes like, all you need is 1,000 true fans and you're set for life. And I keep telling people, 1,000 people paying you $10 a month, you're set for life. Like if you can't live off $120,000, you need to reorganize your life a little. Because that's a good living for anybody in the world,
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, my community is everything to me. And at PodFest, we packed that room, and I felt bad because the Q&A kind of went over it. I'm very on like regimen. Like I'm a checklist driven person. I do not like going over my allotted time at events.
Type A personality.
I'm sweating even worse. I'm like, listen, Wendy, I know we got more questions. I got to end because I don't want to screw the person that's behind me. She's like, it's okay. I'm like, no, it's not. So I moved everything outside in the hall. I'm like, I'll go out there. I will hang out and answer every single question. I was out there for another 90 minutes in the hallway doing Q&A, pictures. And then I did 6 hours of free coaching, just meeting people at the event. I'm like, I'm here to educate. So let's do that. So I love it, man.
That's very interesting. Now, because you say you're here to educate, would you say if let's say regular education was better paying, would you have become a teacher?
I don't know if I'd be a teacher, but like I'm a coach at heart.
Okay.
That's the term that I love. And I love to see somebody with a goal. I like to analyze the roadblocks to that goal and then set up a game plan to overcome the roadblocks. And I do that. There's a book by Dan Sullivan. He's the guy that started Strategic Coach, called Unique Ability. And I went through this whole program, and that's my unique ability because I can apply that to every area of my life. Like I coach my son's 7th grade basketball team. I've been coaching him for the last 5 years, and I love it. I love it. I've got a whole group of his buddies that comes over to my house twice a week in our basement bunker strength training gym, and we do workouts. And like we're setting goals for college and like working backwards, and and I'm making them read like personal growth books. We're doing the whole Ryan Holiday series. Like I've got 7th graders reading the freaking The Obstacle is the Way, and the whole thing. And it's awesome. So coaching is like that label. Some people are like, I'm not a coach, I'm a consultant. And I'm like, I'm a coach. I don't care. I'm not that fancy. You can call me a coach. You can call me a consultant, whatever. But that's what I love to do.
I love it. Is part of the community building part of your 3-phase process that you teach?
Yeah. So with my Podcasting Business Accelerator, that's the way I describe it is we try to build what I call a community to client bridge. As service providers, I see a lot of service providers, a lot of coaches, consultants, they have courses, they've got memberships, boot camps, consulting, whatever. They've got the offers and they've got a show that they're doing week after week. I'm like, I'm proud of you. You're putting out weekly content. That's stellar. That's awesome. Keep repping that out. But the in-between is missing with that bridge. Like, how do we, people are finding your show, but they aren't converting over into paying client status. What's the deal? So part of that process of building a community client bridge is you have to give your community opportunities to be a community, or they won't see themselves as a community. So a lot of podcasters, you hear a lot of people talk about engagement. Like, I'm not getting any engagement. I tell people I give out my email address every single episode. And I'm like, email me questions if you've got them. And I never get any questions. Boo-hoo. And I'm like, that's like the crappiest call to action ever. Like, they're driving their car. They're mowing their lawn. Let me stop mowing my lawn and email Adam with a question. Like, let me think of a question and stop working out so I can do this. Like, that's not going to happen. But if you provide an opportunity like, hey, everybody, this Tuesday night, I'm going live on Instagram. I am going to answer every single download growth question that you guys present to me, as long as it takes. If you have like a very specific, come and be a community, come and be a part of this, or my PodPal Zoom parties, or my podcast audits, I'm inviting people in constantly. Come on in. It's free. Let's interact. I'm going to level you up. I'm going to give you the best that I've got, to the point that you can't believe you're not paying for it. And so that's a big part of building that community client bridge. And the other major factor is what I call my 2/3 rule of content for expert positioning. My 2/3 content rule for expert positioning. I try to name everything, and that's the correct way I should say it. So my 2/3 rule for service providers is that I want 2/3 of your content to feature you as the expert. And when you start doing that with solo episodes, coaching style episodes, your audience views you as the expert. Because if you only do interviews, you're viewed as the person that interviews the experts. So having that as a part of your community client bridge, and you can still like do interviews 1/3 of the time and still have that great connection and collaboration opportunity. But if you are somebody that has programs, products, and services, and none of them are selling, that's probably a huge part of it. Is if you're doing an interview only based show, why would somebody buy something from you? And a lot of times you better be getting some affiliate money from those people that they're buying from. They're coming on your show. Like that's a big hurdle that we need to be able to take care of and eventually cross.
That's true. Now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, that makes so much more sense. My goddamn. But that's why I have so many shows, because I keep trying to figure it out, and I keep growing shows, and I can't stop it. I have an addiction, Adam. I have an addiction. It's true.
I love it.
I want to know, with your focus on helping others achieve success in podcasting and entrepreneurship, what's one personal investment or habit you've cultivated over the years that you believe has significantly contributed to your own success? And how can our listeners apply it as a similar mindset to invest in themselves in the realm of digital entrepreneurship?
Okay, this is easy. I I track the days that I don't work. That's one of my schedule is my top form of compensation. You know, I'm able to pay myself more than I've ever been able to pay myself. But the fact that I took 203 non-work days in 2023, that was my compensation, because that's me being a dad. That's me taking the kid to school, picking them up, coaching their sports, being at every single event, never missing a game, making all the meals, family night. Like, I am super present as a dad, as a husband, the whole thing. So as an entrepreneur, when we all have those metrics that, income, goals, downloads, goals, social media growth, email list. But right in there with all that, I track how many days I don't work. And that's the most important thing, because that to me is the reward of so I don't work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Friday is awesome because my wife goes to work, my kids go to school. I can sit in my underwear and watch Game of Thrones or whatever.
Play video games, whatever you want.
Whatever. Like, I crush at Madden football, like NBA 2K. I'm very much like a 13-year-old. Like, I vibe with my son and his friends. Like, I'm like, grass is grass. We're playing 2K today. And I'm like taking them on and stuff. And it's totally cool. But like that Friday day, I can do whatever I want. So I can completely fill my cup up. Because as parents, a lot of us know when the weekend hits and kids' sports and all that, you feel like you need a vacation from your weekend. Because I just did all this stuff for everybody else, groceries and home stuff and yard stuff and practices, games, all the things. My son has 4 freaking basketball games this weekend, and he's got 3 practices. I'm like, we're doing something every single day for basketball. This is crazy. So all that happens on the weekend, but I'm present for that. And then on Monday, I've got another day for me to kind of set up my week. And then I roll into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, completely fresh, completely creative, able to be efficient and just hammer out content. If you're burned out as a content creator, it's almost impossible to create good content. It takes mental energy for that. Mm-hmm. So the fact that I'm rolling into every Tuesday completely fresh, and the first thing I do is create my content for my show, that's probably why it seems like I did hours of prep, just because I am dialed in. I am caffeinated. I got my cold brew coffee. I've got my electrolytes, and I'm good to go. And I feel like that comes through in the way that I show up as a content creator, as a coach, as a business person. And then by the time Thursday wraps up, I'm kind of like, all right, I need to refresh. I'm ready for those non-work days.
Vacation. You get a mini vacation every single week.
Yeah.
That is the life goal, 3 days a week. So how long are your days? Because you say you work 3 days a week. You can say I work 3 days a week, and you're working from 6 a.m. to midnight. That could be what you're working. That's not a happy schedule, but for anyone. But so what are your hours like?
Yeah. So Tuesday's my longest day, because I do that's when I do all my content creation, my own editing, production, all that stuff. And then I'll do interviews on other people's shows, podcast audits, and I do a lot of discovery calls on Tuesdays. So I usually get started by 9 a.m. Central, and I'm wrapping up by 7 p.m. Central. So it's not 9 to 5, but it's my longest day. Wednesday, I start at 9 a.m., but I'm usually done by 3 p.m. because I got to get the kids to school, got to pick them up. So, or there's after school activities and things like that. And then Thursday, very similar, usually 9 a.m. to about 2 or 3. And I'm good to go there. And then I'm tired and I'm ready for the 4-day weekend. So yeah, I've got one kind of, longer day.
Recording day. The for any podcaster that binges their content in one day, it's usually their longest days. Wednesdays is my recording day from noon to 8 p.m. Sometimes later, depending on if people want longer. Don't work in the same hours as me.
Time zone.
Oh God, time zones. Those are the worst. But also the best, because that allows you to talk to anybody in the world. I want to know, do you outsource any of your working for your podcast?
I have 3 virtual assistants. I've got a main one. Shout out to Ashley. She's US based. and she kind of is my go-to person on helping out with mainly with offers that I have, some of the back end on
More the
fulfillment.
business side.
Yeah. So like with my membership and checking in on people and making sure people are getting onboarded correctly and all that stuff. And then I've got 2 VAs that help her, that we hired to help her, to kind of keep things on pace. And it's great. But I do all the forward facing stuff. So if there's any sort of obviously content creation, if I'm doing meetings, all the coaching, all, discovery calls, all that stuff is me showing up, because that's what I love to do. I don't want to delegate that.
Okay, so pretty much is you're the CEO and head of sales, and Ashley is pretty much the president of the company and has her 2 employees. If I look at it, pretty much.
Yeah, and like all the back end stuff and all kind of connecting the dots and making
Runs
sure
the business. You get to do all the fun stuff. In essence.
Yes.
She does all the hard work. You do all the good, fun stuff.
All things that I'm like, this is boring and crappy. Ashley, I've got to do.
She's like, I love this. I get paid to do this. I'm happy. I love that. I love how because I'm always interested, like, to see, because I've just delegated editing of this podcast to an editor, because it goes out 3 times a week, and trying to run a business and
That's
edit,
a lot.
It's a lot. So I've had to delegate that, but my other podcasts I still do it because I love it. It's the only way I get to stay creative, because working in business, it's just plus and minus. You're like this, okay, you're good, okay, bye, But with this, you're getting all the fun stuff and the knowledge.
Yeah.
Do you find when you do your podcast audit, it helps you stay sharper and it keeps you going like sharpening a whetstone?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I love the challenge. I'm kind of, I'm a former athlete. I played high school sports and stuff like that. So I always loved game day. And I'm like, you never know what's going to get put in front of you, what different situation, what defense is the team going to play, and how are we going to react to it? And yeah, so me showing up, having a little bit of an idea, a little bit of information on what their goal is, what they're struggling with, and then just knowing they can throw anything they want at me, and I got to sit and figure it out live. I love it. Like, some people, that freaks them out, but usually they kind of get like, oh, this is just me being me. Like, this is doing what I do best. If you're a coaching consultant, it's the same thing, except now pressure's on a little bit. Yeah, you got an audience, that's the whole point. That's the good. If you show up and you kill it, that's leveraged within your content. And I have people all the time that find my show and they binge listen, and they just hear me coach and coach and coach and coach. And those are the people that are like, yeah, I found you last Thursday because I searched podcasting tips on Spotify. I've been binge listening over the weekend, and by Tuesday they're ready to hire me because of that expert positioning and me showing off and kind of doing what I do.
Where did you learn that idea? Like, I don't want you to spill all the beans, but the idea of sharing your coaching sessions, because you're coaching, you're giving away free coaching to people all the time, to your audience, which is amazing, because people that will then pay because it's an investment. Where did you come up with that idea?
A lot of trial and error. I mean, with my health show, the first time I tried it, I just knew, I'm like, I love coaching and I feel like this is good content. Let's try something. So with my health brand, I would release a Friday episode where I would bring people from my membership onto the show for a bonus coaching session for 15 minutes. And they would be like, my next goal is to be able to, I want to lose 10 more pounds. And the thing that's keeping me from that is my husband eats lasagna in front of me every single night. So I need a game plan around that, or whatever. And so we'd sit down for 15 minutes. I'd coach them up on, overcoming that roadblock. But it was an advertisement also for my membership. I'm like, if you want to do use the code whatever to get 50% off your first month inside the membership, and you can do a session just like Jane here did. And so that filled up my health, my weight loss club membership pretty nicely, because people would hear that, like, oh, that's what it's like. So let's give this a shot. And then when I started doing the podcast audits, I'm like, let's try people that aren't clients, and let's see how that, so let's see what that produces. And it took me about 20 to 30 of those episodes, and something magic started happening where when I had that many episodes live on my show, a lot of people were listening to me do those 10 or 12 times, and then they would sign up for a podcast audit. And the people that did that, 80% of them would end up hiring me. And it's not a sales call at all. And it got so bad, Phil. And I used the word bad.
Yeah, that's bad. I feel so sorry
bad.
for you, sir.
Yeah, I use the word bad very loosely. It's like Michael Jackson bad, like good bad. It got so bad that now when I do a podcast audit, before we start recording, I go, listen, I don't know if you've thought about hiring me or not, but please don't mention it as we're recording because it makes it kind of weird. Like I had people in the middle of the session going, all right, I'm pretty much ready to go. Here's my credit card. And I'm like, no, we're recording like content. Like that's not the purpose of what we're doing here. I want to, let's keep coaching. So now I tell people, I'm like, don't mention about hiring me, signing up for anything. We can talk about that afterwards if you want to. But I said time after time, people are like, got my credit card right here. Let's get started. And we're like
giving you the credit card number on air. You're like, this is live.
In.
No.
Yeah. So I have to preempt that a little bit. That's how effective it is. Like that. Jesus. People are just listening to me coaching. Then they would sign up for it kind of with the mindset of like, this is just a formality. I'm going to do this and I'm going to hire the guy. And it's now that I've got hundreds of these, I've been doing it for over 2 years, every single Friday. It's even more impactful. And I just see so many people that are like, I mean, those are people, my audience, those are the most downloaded episodes that I have. I can have Pat Flynn on, big fancy famous podcaster guy, and he'll do all right. Podcast audits will double those downloads every single week, nonstop. And it's people come on and they have questions and problems that my other listeners have. So it represents them really nicely and people love it. So I'm going to keep doing it.
Have you ever thought of teaming up and doing like a limited, like with Pat Flynn, let's say you and Pat Flynn do a podcast audit?
I mean, I could. I don't think Pat's going to call me back though. You know, I keep reaching out and he's like, I'm not, he doesn't pick up, but no, like it's something I could definitely, I love collaboration style episodes, and I've got some goals for this year of like some ideas I'm always experimenting, and I'm kind of fearless with my brand with that. But like, I kind of want to do almost like a podcast audio summit on my show. And almost like it's almost like you went to Podfest, but everything is just on my show for a week, and it's just hours of podcasters teaching. So now that I'm going to ask you
something after the episode, I have something to talk to you about after the episode, something that I'm planning. So definitely going to reach out to you, like, well, as soon as we're done recording. But that brings me to the final question, Adam, because selfishly, I want as much knowledge as possible, not just for myself, but for my nephew who's going to be turning 10 in a bit, but I'm writing a book for him, and I want to know advice from you, what you would give your 10-year-old self. He's right here, Adam, the Spitfire 10-year-old who's about to go launch his first business, because he already knows packing bags is not for him. What advice are you giving young Adam?
Young Adam, I really feel like I would tell my 10-year-old self to just become really good at making friends and networking. That's how I would describe it, would be making friends. Like if you are good at making friends, it's going to open up any door that you need to open for you. That opens up the door towards learning things. That opens the door towards opportunities. Like I'm not a skilled marketer. I'm not a skilled salesperson at all. I am really good at making friends. Like once you're in my world, Phil Better, like the pod, once you become a pod pal, like I take that seriously. And now you're top of mind. So I'm always looking to add value. I'm like, how can I hook Phil up with, another killer guest, or can I get him to speak at something that I'm speaking at? Or like, I just look for opportunities, and like, I love little surprises like that. Phil, I get this person I want to connect you to. And I get so fired up. I'm like your dog when you come home and your dog's all like fired up to see you. That's how I am. I love that. Like I'm good at making friends and just being sticky and adding value. And if you do that enough, good things are going to happen.
I love that. That's great advice. Adam, I'm going to jump off stage here. I want you to tell my audience where they can find you, where they can follow you, anything you want, where they can get their free podcast audit, whatever you feel like value you want to give them. The floor is yours.
All right. So first of all, thanks to Phil for inviting me to collaborate on his platform. It's always an honor when somebody does that. Make sure that if you guys have not left a 5-star rating and review wherever you are watching or listening to this, go do that and mention that this was your favorite episode of all time. That's very important. That builds my ego. So if you guys want to connect with me, just head on over to my main platform, www.podcastingbusiness.school, podcastingbusiness.school. I've got a very simple website because I built it myself. There are 3 buttons. One of the buttons says free things. You can click on that. You can sign up for a podcast audit. You can come on for my PodPal Zoom parties. All of the freebie stuff is right there. I've got a really cool podcast growth scorecard that a lot of people like. So hop in there, get connected, become a PodPal, and I will promise to take good care of you. And if you guys want to check out Podcasting Business School, weekly episodes on Tuesdays and Fridays, I recommend starting with episode number 353. It's in the Wayback Machine, just a little bit, about 100 episodes ago. But I've got an episode called the Podcast Monetization Pyramid that I think that service providers will find very useful. So episode 353 of Podcasting Business School, Podcast Monetization Pyramid. Go check it out. And yeah, Phil, I appreciate you, man.
Oh, I appreciate you. Well, I'll just make it life a little easier to them. Show notes. It's going to be right there. It's going to be the show notes. Always in the show notes. You know that. Adam, thank you so much. This was one of probably top 5 favorite episodes on this podcast. Only topped by the gentleman who was interviewed by Larry King. Only reason is because he got Larry King. He has that Larry King cred. I'm sorry, he tops you, but that's fine. Hey, I had a fun time talking with you.
Yeah, I'll be top 5 all day long, bro. So I appreciate you. And yeah, I appreciate you and your audience, man. I hopefully got some value out of it.
Oh, if they didn't, I did. And that's all that matters really sometimes. But no, to my audience, thank you so much for listening. Thank you again to Adam. Check out the show notes for the monetization pyramid episode of the Podcasting Business School hosted by Adam Schaeuble. I got it right again. I thank you very much for listening. And remember to always invest in yourself.